this is Stormworks, and at the risk of this becoming a vehicles-only channel, this is the arcade. The arcade is basically a scaled-up version of the Cheetah. All of the things I tested on the Cheetah, I refined, and now they're on a much larger, more powerful vehicle. The Cheetah maxed out at about 160 kilometers an hour. For this, 160 kilometers an hour would be considered slow. That would be what you would get in inclement weather. This vehicle prefers to go more like 200, 250. It can go even faster due to a new exploit I discovered. I'm going to try and figure out how to make a vehicle entirely based around that next. This is a very, very easy to use vehicle. You can see the turning is quite snappy. If you try and run curly cues, it can get a little bit rough, but it's not too bad. It's called the arcade because of the noises it makes when it brakes. Because this has braking. One of the things that the Cheetah couldn't do was brake, but I figured out how to do it, so this vehicle can brake, and it can brake really, really fast, and it makes funny noises while it does it. And you might be wondering, well, all of that's nice, but how does it work when there's some waves? And the answer is it's fine. So we're maintaining above 160, roughly, just plowing through these waves, no biggie. And it makes fun sounds while you do it, because it's the arcade. Don't know if you can even hear those on YouTube. Let's see. What is the exploit I kept talking about? You said that you could go really, really fast, right? So what sort of speeds can you really get out of this thing? Well, let me show you. So that's the exploit. You can get 800 meters a second underwater. Now that was pretty darn cool. Let's go ahead and brake. So let me show you some of the other features of this vehicle. As you can see, it's quite easy to pilot. I didn't have to turn on anything or flip switches or anything. It's just get in and go. The only thing you have to do is turn it on by hitting 1. That beeping sound tells you that you're on, but your engines aren't really revved up. We're going to go ahead and turn ourselves off just to stop that beeping from beeping. And then we're going to look around at the vehicle and see what sort of cool features it has. So it's got the standard features there. It's got some warnings. If you're going fast, it'll tell you to stay seated or die, because you will die. This game does not know how to calculate speeds over 100 kilometers an hour, and it will just kill you. So stay seated unless you're invincible. We can go down into the foredeck here, where we have beds, medical beds, seats. That's fun, right? We can come back out, close it up so we don't accidentally fall in, go to the back. This is capable of carrying cargo, unlike some of the other vehicles we have. Back here we can see all of the engines, and it's also a large enough room that you can drop boxes in, and the boxes can stay back here. I don't recommend trying to go above 60 if you're carrying boxes, because they will just slam into the back of your vehicle hard enough to damage you. This is our braking system. It is simply a bunch of fans pointed straight down. So when we want to slow down, or we want to burn off extra revolutions per second on our jet engines, we just fire these things up. They drag the jet engines to a stop really, really fast, and they also push the vehicle into the water, both of which act to slow the vehicle down very effectively. As an advantage, when you're skipping above the waves, sometimes these things can't fire up because the water intakes are above the water, and they don't work when that happens. And when you do that, these will kick in to help slow the jet down, so the jet can fire back up, which means the jet will keep pushing you forward even if you're not in the water. And these will use the extra force of those jets to push you down back towards the water, which is why we have such sublime control, even in choppy weather. The basic setup we've got is, we've got a little bit of a hovering piece of logic there, but that's fine. The basic setup we've got is we've got 6 of these jets. They pull in off of these water supplies. I was worried because with the smaller boats, having water supplies spread out along the x-axis often means that only some of them will get water, but that doesn't seem to be a problem with the larger boats. So even though there are 6 of these, they all tend to fire up. They don't tend to just like have half of the boats fire up. So the stability is very good. Back here we've got some diving equipment for diving purposes, if that's what you'd like to do. You can see in the back we've got our 6 jet engines, some steering vectors, and a sump output, and a whole bunch of inputs. Over here, we've got our automated control systems. These will keep the vehicle flat. They control the pitch and the roll of the vehicle. You can put in manual pitch by pressing up and down. That's how you can dive into the water and get those ridiculous 800 kilometers per hour speeds. And those are the features of this particular vehicle. Easy and sweet and not too difficult to work with. Shall we try that 800 meters per second one again? That tends to crash me, so it's a lot of fun, right? So if we just bring our pitch down to like 0.1, we can get ourselves some intermittent speed. Let's try it at, there we are, 0.13. Just a touch higher, and now we are getting all of the speed. Woohoo! Oh, I forgot to mention, you can turn on lights. So we've got some lights. That'll help us when we're not dying here. So you can see where we are in terms of hitting the ground or whatever. We are, in fact, pointed a little bit down here, so we might die. So let's just point ourselves a little bit up. There we are. You can hear the grinding as we're in the air. It's keeping the jet engines firing and also pushing us back down towards the water. You can see why this might require a new vehicle to try and avoid any sort of random damage. You can see how we took some scratches there. Doesn't appear to have done any damage to anything other than squishy old me, though. So now you're probably wondering how this thing feels when you crash it. Well, this sort of vehicle is super high performance, and if you crash it, you're probably going to die. So let's go west. That way. And see if we can track this down and... oh, no, north. There we are. And I'll just show you just how bizarre this sort of super high performance vehicle is when you crash it. Oh! That is the first time that has ever happened. Normally you skip right off. But as you can see, it kind of takes to the skies. Now the problem with this is that although it might be cool to have a boat that turns into a plane, it's not actually any faster in the sky. If anything, it's slower. And so it's not very good to have it stuck in the sky. This said, we actually, although we took a lot of damage, we're not doing too bad here. The main problem we've got is that we've lost control. Oh well. So what we're going to do with this is just put it up in the workshop. Anyone can play with it. I don't mind if you take it apart, recolor it, amp it up, do whatever you want to do. Have some fun. But for now, we're going to just return this back to our dock. I'm going to take you on a quick little tour of the internals. You don't have to hang around for that if it's not your thing. So if we turn on our y-axis cut, there's a lot of details here that are worth mentioning, at least in passing. First things, I wanted to mention that this nose section is a couple of steps lower than the main deck. And that's on purpose because I didn't want a huge bulbous nose, so I lowered it down a little bit. But I did need it to be contained because otherwise you would be taking water to the face way too much. If we look in the back, we have our main storage area. This doesn't contain our jet engines. All it contains is the jet engine load, whether that is the water jets or the fans. It also is a good spot to store all of our logic, which is the same logic as in the Cheetah, so I'm not going to go into detail there. We've got some jets here. These are just 2 jet engines. I think in the next one, I'll probably, if I want to make another boat like this, I might make it 4 jet engines, or maybe 5 and one pointed backwards. I haven't decided yet. The jet engine fuel is again wrapped around the jet engines in a U shape, which it seems to be fine. It works great. So the other thing worth mentioning is that the cargo doors actually have stairs, or rather ladders on them. When you lift the cargo up, you can just climb out on top of the cargo door. I haven't seen that happen very much, and it's such an easy little tweak, you might as well do it yourself. It's worth noting that these cargo doors lock when they're closed, and that's just an easy matter of having one of these seal locks and having the button feed into the seal lock. And that's really all there is to it. This is not any more complicated than the Cheetah. The only difference between this and the Cheetah, in terms of how it runs, is that this one has a much better braking mechanism. These things here. These are fantastic brakes, and I think I can polish them to be even better if I wanted to. The next thing I want to do, however, is not polish those, but instead create a vehicle capable of using that 800 meter per hour kilometer per hour trick. That trick takes advantage of the difference in how a vehicle is simulated above and below the water. And I think it's related to the water jets. So I'm going to look into that. But this is the fun part of these games. This is the part I love. Exploring the edges of the game. Have a good one.